I'm your lovely host, Lotta. So a couple of months ago, I posted a video showing you how to make pizza, and apparently a lot of people really liked it. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch it up there, but let's watch this video first. And so I figured I could show you something that's similar, but a little bit different, but just as good. Which brings us to today's video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Flammkuchen, or a tarte flambé, which is basically like a French-German flatbread pizza. And it's really quick and easy to make, and it's perfect for those really hot summer days where you don't really want a hefty meal, but you do want something that's super delicious. And it's also great as an appetizer if you're hosting a gathering for a bunch of people. So let's get into it. Now for the actual dough, you're going to need 150 milliliters of lukewarm water, 2 tablespoons of the oil of your choice, 7 grams of salt, 300 grams of all-purpose flour, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now you can also add other spices into your actual dough like I did with my pizza dough if you kind of want a little bit more of a flavor inside the actual crust. I personally like it plain, just like this. Now all we're going to do is whip this up into a really quick dough. Now I personally don't like using a hand mixer or just kneading the dough completely with my hands, so I'm going to be using my KitchenAid. Not sponsored, but hypothetically, if KitchenAid ever sees this video, please sponsor me. That would be great. I would enjoy that a lot. I mean, I know I don't have a lot of subscribers or views or likes, but that doesn't matter. I will be your new ambassador if you let me. Anyways, all we're going to do is add all of this into our mixing bowl and let the KitchenAid just knead it all together. So my dough has come together really nicely. So I'm just going to knead it once with my hands just to get it into a nice round ball. Now if your dough doesn't come together quite as nicely, you can always add another splash of water while you're mixing it. Now because there's no yeast or baking powder in this dough, it's not going to necessarily rise up or puff up, but we still need to let this dough rest for a little bit. Once you have a nice smooth ball, you can grab a bowl that you want to put your dough into. I also added a tiny splash of oil just to make sure that the dough doesn't dry out. So I'm just going to rub the oil all over the surface of my dough from either side and then put it seam down into my bowl. I'm just going to cover this either with a kitchen towel or some plastic wrap and let it sit for about an hour, hour and a half. Now for the topping, you're going to need 1 onion, 150 grams of pancetta or any other type of like pork cubes that you have. And you're also going to need 150 grams of sour cream. Traditionally, you're supposed to use creme fraiche, which is basically like a sour cream with a higher fat content, but I couldn't find any, so sour cream looks just as fine, as well as some salt and pepper and also some paprika. So I'm going to start by making the tomato sauce of my pizza, which is going to be my sour cream with my spices. So I'm simply going to add however much of the spices I kind of feel like I need, give it a taste here and there until I'm happy with the amount of spices that are in it. Can never go wrong with some pepper. Bit of salt. Now it's really hot here where I am, so I don't want to leave my sour cream out on the counter. So I'm just going to put it in the fridge while I prepare my other 2 toppings. All I'm going to do is cut my onion into some nice thin slices. Now my onion is really big, but I'm also an onion fan, so it's fine. But if you're not a huge fan of onions, then maybe take a smaller onion or just half an onion. Now at this point, I'm going to add my pancetta into a pot on medium heat to allow for all the fat that's kind of inside of the bacon to come out and also crispen up our bacon. So as soon as it's nice and crispy, I'm just going to scoop it out, and then with the rest of the fat that's already inside of my pot, I'm going to brown my onions. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt and pepper just for flavor. And hypothetically, if your bacon does not have enough fat, to allow for the onions to get nice and brown, you can always just add a little bit of butter into your pot as well. We have all the components, we're ready to put everything together and make our Flammkuchen. So basically all that's left to do is to roll out our dough here. You can always use a little bit of flour if you want, and then just put it onto your pre-lined baking tray. So there's a couple different options on how to roll out your dough. So you could either make like a rectangle or a circle or kind of like a long oval, which I think is what I'm going to do. Once you're happy with the size and shape of your dough, you can spread on your sour cream mix. I like using my little spatula to get it nice and even, and you also want to leave a tiny bit on the edge, which is going to be like your crust. Now we simply spread on our toppings and then it's pretty much ready to go. Now technically there's not supposed to be any cheese on this, but I added some anyways just because I really like it that way. And I also added some chives as well. So now this just needs to bake at 230 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes or until the top is nice and golden brown as well as the bottom crust. And you can also, instead of making a big one like this, you can make little small individual ones and have everyone top them the way that they like it with different toppings. I've made one before with potato slices that was really good. You could also do like mushrooms and spinach, or really anything, but this is kind of like the classic, well, minus the cheese. So I pulled the Flammkuchen out of the oven and I let it cool down for a little bit. So at this point, we just gotta cut into it and give it a taste. Now you can cut this however you like. I personally prefer little squares so it's easier to share if it's this size. But if you're making some smaller ones about this size, it would also be good to cut them into strips. That way they're easy to grab and it's kind of like finger food. And there's so many different flavor combinations that you can do. Another one that I really like is potato slices with a little bit of rosemary and some other stuff, and that's really, really good. So if you do want to see me make a couple different variations of this, do let me know and I'll be sure to make that video for you guys. So if you do have any left over, you could always pop it into a container and put it into the fridge for a couple of days. And then when you are ready to eat it, you can either heat it up in the microwave. The only thing there is that the crust will be a little bit more soft and soggy, or you can just eat it cold as well. I know a couple of people that will eat anything and everything cold and refuse to heat it up, but to each their own. So that's everything for today's video. If you've managed to stick it through to the very end, thanks. And you can subscribe if you want, give me a little thumbs up. And if you have any comments or any recommendations for stuff you would like to see me make or attempt to make, do let me know in the comments down below.